Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming and for giving us the opportunity to share this important topic about to create a culture of safety and a culture of success. As you know, the change of our lives that are occurring because of the pandemic moment request the modification of our behavior in our culture, both in our workplace and daily life. Learn an easy way to create a high-performing culture of safety post-COVID-19 inside your organization. This topic is important for organization leaders, human resource manager, safety department. This topic will be explained by our guests, Mr. Tim Burningham and Dr. John Sinclair, will tell us about the main element to develop our organizational culture where safety is one of the key pillars. Let me introduce them regarding the biography. John Sinclair, a highly skilled leader in the field of human resource for multinational teams. He focused on the development and execution of human resource strategy, meaning people, talent, and culture of performance to achieve business results. Extensive experience aligned the human resource team to accomplish the corporate mission, while aligning personal interests with values and ethical principles of the organization. You know, Dr. John Sinclair is human resource consultant with experience in human resource strategies, occupational health and safety. On the other hand, we have Tim Burningham. He is an experienced leader and former CEO in the healthcare industry. He and the organization he led have received multiple awards for outstanding performance, including being recognized as a top 100 healthcare center by USA News and World Report. He has created high-performance company culture everywhere he's worked, which has led to remarkable results. Currently, he is president of the Center for Company Culture, a management consulting firm committed to helping organizations and leaders build cohesive and create amazing company culture. Tim's practical and straightforward approach has assisted leaders and organizations across the world to improve performance and love what they do. Tim is a sought-after speaker, guest lecturer, consultant, and executive coach. He is the author of several books, including Be an Awesome Boss for the Six Model to the Leadership Successful, and How Leaders Can Strengthen Their Organization Culture. Tim is also the host of the Culture Guide podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping leaders to create extraordinary company culture. Tim lives with his wife and 5 children in the Houston, Texas area. Okay, everybody, after the presentation is over, if you would like to participate with questions, please raise your hand. No, please write your question during the presentation. Also, if you would like to write the question in Spanish, no problem. John and I will translate to Tim. Dr. Sinclair, could you please introduce the topic?
Yes, thanks Julio for the introduction and welcome everyone to this webinar. Like a year ago, I read this amazing book, Be an Awesome Boss, written by Tim, our main speaker today. I highly got impressed by the easy way Tim proposed how we can build or reinforce a leadership culture inside any organization following the 4C. Today, organizations have to face different challenges after this new post-COVID era. We need to have a strong organizational culture to survive this storm. Some of these important challenges are, you know, new work rules like work from home, new hazard conditions, new safety rules, new engagement strategies, new skills to apply in our daily routines like empathy and resilience. The longer effects of COVID-19 are beginning to emerge. The behavioral health toll of anxiety and depression related to the virus itself, the second wave, the extended lockdown, and the ensuing economic downturn. Please, Tim, go ahead with your presentation, creating a culture of safety and success. Welcome, Tim, to Panama.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, John and Julio. It's good to be here, and I'm grateful for this opportunity that I have to share some of my knowledge and just some of my experience. And I know it's really difficult times out there right now, and I hope that something that I share might be of some help to you as you strive to create this culture of safety and success. So to begin, where were you when you realized, or what day was it when you realized that the coronavirus pandemic was going to be a big deal, that it was going to change the world, and that things were going to be different because of it? So for me, it actually was March 11th, of course, of 2020, this year. And something was going on in our community here in Houston, Texas, that's a really, really big deal. On an annual basis, we have a livestock show and rodeo. It's the biggest one in the entire world. And we have over 2.5 million visitors that come to the rodeo. And that event alone has a revenue of about $1.75 million. So it's a really, really big deal. Now, when I heard that the Houston rodeo was about to shut down over the coronavirus, that's when I realized that this is a big deal, and this is going to change our world. And most importantly, it's going to change our world of work. And that's exactly what it's done. Our world of work hasn't been the same ever since the coronavirus. So this is what I look like in shock when I heard that the Houston rodeo was being shut down. And so now, as we slowly begin to kind of reopen our businesses and begin to pick up the pieces and try to put things together and try to find success, of course, the question is, how do we adjust? And how do we adapt? And how do we create a culture so that we embrace safety in our culture so that we're able to operate and be successful in our organizations? So of course, that's what we're going to be talking about today. So my goal today, first and foremost, is just to share what is company culture and why it matters. I'm just going to talk about that really briefly for the first 5 minutes. Then after that, I want to show you how you can establish a culture of safety and a culture of success in your own organization. So I'll spend about 45 minutes talking about that for a little bit. So first, what is culture? So culture are the shared beliefs, shared assumptions, and really the norms that exist within our organization. So they're the written as well as the unwritten rules that people live by inside our companies. And in a way, culture is our company's personality. Now, cultures, they're not static, so they're always changing and evolving. And that's actually good news for us, because a culture can be crafted and it can be cultivated. And so you can create and build the culture that you want for your organization. And in fact, this is really an essential function of leadership members to create a strong culture in their organizations. Now, what happens with a lot of organizations and a lot of leaders, they just kind of let the culture evolve on its own, and they just kind of have a culture by default. The best organizations take a proactive role in building a strong culture. And we're going to be talking about that in just a little bit, how you can go about doing that. So this is important because in a recent study in a Harvard Business Review, they looked at what predicts workplace satisfaction. They found that the top predictor of workplace satisfaction for employees, that it's actually not the pay. And that's becoming more and more true even with the younger generations. It's not necessarily about the pay anymore. It's really all about the organization's culture. So the top predictor of workplace satisfaction, they discovered, was the organization's culture. Now, there have been a lot of studies that have been conducted out there that have looked at the importance of culture. One was done by Columbia University, which is located in New York City. And using their methodology, they looked at 600 businesses. And based on their methodology, they classified those businesses into those that had a good culture, those that had an average culture, and those that had a bad culture. And again, based on their study, they found that those companies that had a good culture, their employee turnover percentage was at 13.9%, while those that had a bad culture, their employee turnover percentage was at 48.4%. They also found that employees in a good culture, that they were 12% more productive, and that those in a bad culture, the employees were 10% less productive. They also found that those that had a good culture, that they outperformed the competition by 20%. And they found that those that had a bad culture, that they always seemed to lag behind the competition. They also found that those that had a good culture, the likelihood of attracting new high quality talent was very high, while those that had a bad culture, the likelihood of attracting new high quality talent and employees was very, very low. So the Gallup organization has also looked a lot on, has also conducted a lot of studies on employee engagement and the importance of culture. And based on their most recent study of 1,600 businesses, they found that 63% of employees are not engaged at work. So they're not committed to work, they're not putting forth their best effort, and they're not engaged. They found that 24% are actively disengaged at work. So they're not interested, they're not committed at all, they're not putting forth much effort at all. They also found that 87% lack motivation and are unhappy at work, and they found that 13% of employees, only 13% of employees are actually engaged at work. So then they looked at how this impacted the bottom line and the financial performance of these organizations. And again, they found that those companies that had a low level of engagement for their employees, that they had a 33% decrease in operating income and 11% decrease in earnings growth. While those companies that had high levels of engagement among their employees, they had a 19% increase in operating income and a 28% increase in earnings growth. And based on their study, they actually estimated that it costs American businesses, that poor cultures and low employee engagement, that costs American businesses over $300 billion a year. So it literally pays to invest in your culture and create the right culture in your organizations. Finally, just one final quote from Jim Collins. Jim Collins is the author of Good to Great and a lot of other very popular books. He's pretty much spent his life studying what makes companies great and what's the difference between just average or good companies and great companies. And he said that culture isn't just one aspect of the game, but he said it is the game. So to have a great business, you have to have a great culture. So now, of course, the question becomes how? How do we create this good culture? How do we create a culture of safety and success in the environment that we find ourselves in now? This environment where there's this virus, there's a lot of concern, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of uncertainty. How do we go about creating a strong culture, making sure we do it in a way that people embrace safety and that we do it in a safe way? So for the rest of my presentation, we're going to talk about 4 steps creating a culture of safety and success. So step number 1 to create a culture of safety and success is to create clarity. You want to create clarity throughout your organization. Now, there are things that are more important than others that you need to strive to make clear in your organization. But at the end of the day, you want to create as much organizational clarity as you possibly can create around as many things as you possibly can. Now, with that being said, what are the most important things, especially in the current environment that we find ourselves in, and as we strive to transform our cultures and build a culture of safety, a culture that embraces safety more, what are the most critical things leadership teams need to make clear? I'm going to share those with you right now. First is the purpose. You need to share the purpose of why you're creating these new safety measures or why you're implementing new policies and practices into your organization. You need to share why it matters, why it's important, and most importantly, how it will benefit your employees. So you need to make that crystal clear in the minds of your team. Next, you need to create clarity around your plan. So how are we going to do it? How are we going to keep people safe? And how will these safety measures be enforced in our organization? So you need to create, again, clarity around that plan. Next is what I call the picture and the vision. So the picture is, what will happen if we don't follow these safety measures? What will happen if we don't transform our culture? What will that picture look like? So paint that picture for your team and make that really clear in their minds. And then paint a picture of what our future will look like if we do follow these new safety protocols, these new safety measures that we're putting into place. And then finally, you need to make really clear everyone's roles and responsibilities in this new culture, in these changes that you're making, so that people can embrace, the new safety elements of your organization. So let's walk through an example of what this might look like, just real quick to try to help you out a little bit. So if I'm a company and I'm gonna put in some new safety measures, I need to make sure that purpose is clear. So the purpose I might want to share might be something like, we're doing this, we're implementing these policies and these protocols because we want to keep everyone safe. Because you can get sick, and if you get sick, you could potentially lose your job. You could also infect others, including your coworkers and our customers, and even your family and friends. And so the reason why we're putting these safety measures in place is really to keep everyone safe, and specifically to protect you and to protect your family. Now, another purpose might be, we need to implement these safety measures also to keep our business in operation, because if we have a big COVID outbreak in our company, then we're gonna have to shut everything down again, and we don't wanna do that. We want to keep everyone employed. And so that's why these new safety measures are so important. And that's why we must change our culture and really embrace these new safety measures that we're putting into place. Because if we don't do this, we could lose our business. So you need to make, again, first and foremost, that purpose really, really clear. Next is your plan. Again, this is just a simple example of what this might look like. So your plan may be, okay, everyone needs to wear a mask at work. On top of that, everyone needs to maintain social distancing. So we've set up workstations so that everyone's at least 6 to 8 feet apart, or whatever you might feel is best for your organization. And then perhaps part of the plan would be, we're going to do frequent testing and health evaluations to make sure everyone's staying healthy in our work environment. And so you need to lay out that plan to your team. Let them know what the plan is and what those changes will be. Again, creating clarity around these aspects are really, really critical for you to create, again, a culture of safety and success. And then you also want to make it clear what's it gonna be like if people don't follow the new policies and protocols. Like, what's going to be the ramifications of that, or how are you going to enforce that? And so again, just my simple example, perhaps you may say, so the first violation of not following any of our new safety protocols, it will result in a written warning. A second violation will lead to a final written warning, and then the third violation will lead to a separation of employment. We'll have to let you go. So again, make this very clear what it will look like if people don't adhere to the new safety measures that you're putting into place. And then again, remind them of the purpose, that this is all about helping them and helping the business and helping everyone to stay employed. Next, you want to create clarity around the picture. So this is, what will things look like if we don't embrace these new safety measures? So again, the picture might be something like, If we don't do this, we could lose our business, we could lose our jobs, we could lose the trust of our customers, we could get infected ourselves, and we could infect others, including those that we love. And so it's important, it's critical for us to change how we do business and to really embrace these new safety measures and these new protocols. So you want to make that picture very clear for your team. And then, of course, you want to make the vision very clear, or what it will look like when you do follow these new safety protocols and these new measures. So again, here's just a simple example. If we do this, if we follow through with our safety measures, it will give us the best chance to stay open and to continue to operate. It will allow us to earn the trust of our customers, and it will give us an opportunity to grow our business. If we do this better than anyone else, if we're more safe and create more safety in our organization than anyone else, we could even gain market share, and we could grow our business, and we could even become an industry leader. And so at the end of the day, if we embrace this new culture and embrace these new safety protocols that we're implementing, it will result in a bright future for all of us if we follow through for it. So you want to paint that picture, make it really clear for your team what things are going to look like as you embrace this new culture and these new safety measures. Finally, you want to make sure that roles are very clear. People need to understand what part they play in the plan. And so it could be as simple as your role is to follow the rules and to encourage others to do so as well. And part of that role may also be you should also report any violations of the rules that you become aware of. Let us know as leaders so that we can address it and make sure that it's taken care of. So you want to make sure that the roles of your team members are very clear in this plan as well as you create this culture of safety. So again, you want to create clarity. That's step number one to creating a culture of success, and to really change your culture is to create clarity around your purpose, right? Why we're making these changes, why we're doing things differently, your plan, how we're going to go about making sure that everyone's safe, and then of course your picture, your vision, and the roles that your people play. So creating clarity around these most important things will set the stage for your ability to create the right culture, especially in this very difficult environment that we find ourselves in right now. Now, with each of these steps, there's what I call a big key to your success. And so your big key to success with creating clarity is repetition. Repetition, repetition, repetition. You have to become very comfortable with repeating yourselves often, talking about the plan often, talking about the purpose over and over and over again, talking about the picture and the vision and the roles. You need to make these things really clear, and the best way to do that is to repeat yourself over and over and over again. In fact, there have been a lot of studies out there that have proven that it takes us as human beings to hear something, to hear or see the same message at least 7 times before we'll really begin to embrace it and believe it and understand that this is a message that we should pay attention to. Again, if you can think throughout your own career, there's probably been times when your boss has told you something, maybe once or twice, and you really didn't pay that much attention to it. But as he kept repeating it and talking about it, all of a sudden you were like, well, maybe I should pay attention to this. Maybe I should listen to this. And the same is true for our teams that we lead, right? As leaders of organizations, they need to hear the same messages over and over and over again, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. You can never repeat yourself too often. And where leaders and organizations make the biggest mistake with this step is they believe they've been clear, when the reality is they haven't been. They think that because they've said something, they've shared the purpose of why they're doing all these new safety measures, they've shared that once or twice, they think they've been clear. But again, the reality is it takes us 7 to 8 to 9 times to hear something. And so you really need to create a whole lot of clarity, and you need to become comfortable with repeating yourself often. And it can get monotonous, it can get a little boring saying the same thing over and over again, but you need to do that as a leader. And there's a big difference between being sort of clear in your organization and being really clear. And so if you want to create a culture of success, you need to be really clear in these most important things. So then the question becomes, well, how do we go about creating clarity? And so for each step, I'm also going to share just a simple best practice with you that I've seen other leaders and other organizations do to help them with that step. So one, and again, there's a lot of different things that you can do to create clarity in your organization. And this is just one simple way that's been very helpful for a lot of organizations and leaders that I've worked with. And that is through what I call your people systems, or perhaps your HR systems. So you can create a lot of clarity around these most important things during the interview and onboarding processes, during new employee orientation. You can create clarity through your rewards, compensation, and recognition programs that you establish. You can create clarity through performance improvements plans and your disciplinary processes, as well as through your evaluations and your trainings in your organization. And even during your meetings, present you a wonderful opportunity to create a whole lot of clarity around these most important things. So as we transition and try to embrace a culture of safety, you need to make sure during these people systems that you're talking about that purpose, the plan, the picture, the vision, and the roles of your team members. And as you continue to repeat yourself often and share these things in the interview process, the onboarding process, new employee orientation, through your rewards and compensation recognition programs, and through all these people systems, you'll begin to create organizational clarity, the organizational clarity that you need in order to build and create a high-performing company culture in your organization. So again, step number one to create a culture of safety and success is to create clarity, and your key to success is repetition. So let's go ahead and move on to step number two. So step number two to creating a culture of safety and success is now to establish consistency. So you've created clarity, you've said what we're going to do, you've talked about the purpose, but now you need to follow through with consistent systems and consistent words and consistent actions that support that clarity. So again, what do we need to be consistent with? You need to be consistent with the things that are within your control as a leader and as an organization. Now, there's a lot of things that are outside of your control, right? Changes in the industry, changes in regulations, the environment out there. You know, who knows what? Hopefully not. What the next virus might bring, right? So there's certainly things that are outside of our control that we can't establish consistency around, but there are a lot of things within our control that we need to be consistent with. So number one is your actions, right? So if you introduce these new safety protocols, and let's say again that one of those is to wear a mask, then you as a leader, you need to set the example. You need to be the very best out of everyone in your organization and wearing that mask. Because if you don't, then you're not establishing this consistency that's needed to build a successful culture and to build a culture of safety. And so our actions as leaders is critical to success. We need to be very consistent with those. What you say as leaders matters a lot. And so your words, again, need to be consistent with the purpose you've laid out, with the plan that you've laid out, with the picture and vision that you've laid out. Your words need to reinforce and reiterate those things that you've shared. And again, what happens a lot of times is that leaders will make a joke here or there or say things that, you know, that are just kind of half-heartedly and they're not really serious about. But what happens is that our team members hear that and they listen to it and it produces some confusion. And then we're not able to be consistent in the messages that we're sharing. So we want to be very consistent in those messages. You also need to be consistent with your attitude, right? How do you present yourself when we're talking about these safety measures? Do you have a bad attitude with it? Are you saying, yeah, we have to wear our masks. I really hate it. It really kind of sucks and I don't like it a lot. Or are we saying, you know what, we have to wear these masks because it's going to help us keep our business open and it's going to help us keep everyone employed and it's going to keep us all safe. And so your attitude around this transition is, again, critical to your success and critical to your ability to establish a culture of success. If you don't have a consistently good attitude about it, then it's going to be really hard to change your culture and to build this this culture of safety. And then finally, you need to be consistent with your approach. So again, this goes back to how are we going to handle similar situations that come up? For example, if we go back to our example, how are we going to handle it when someone doesn't wear their mask at work, or we notice they take their mask off? What's going to be our approach? And how do we make sure that that approach is consistent every time? Because if it's not consistent, then again, you're going to hurt your culture. Because if one manager is allowing his team to kind of take off the mask and he just kind of reminds them and jokes around with them and doesn't make it a big deal, but another manager is maybe following the policies and he's writing people up and he's terminating people because they're not following the policies, that inconsistency in your organization, again, is going to cause a lot of problems, and it's really going to hurt your culture in your organization. So as a leadership team, you need to discuss and decide what's going to be our approach. How are we going to handle it when our employees don't follow the plan that we've laid out for them? What is that enforcement process and that disciplinary process going to look like so that all of us are handling it the same way? And so again, you need to be consistent with your actions, words, attitude, and approach. Now, one of the easiest ways that you can undermine your leadership and really sabotage your success with building a high-performing company culture is what I call behavioral misalignment. And again, it's the leadership team saying one thing and then doing another. So it's a leader saying, hey, everyone's got to wear their masks. Remember, masks are really important. This is critical to our success. We need to keep each other safe. We need to keep our doors open by wearing our mask. But then the leader doesn't wear the mask. Again, that you're saying one thing and then you're doing something different. So that's really going to undermine your effectiveness as a leader, and it's going to sabotage your success for building a great culture. So your behavior and your actions, so behavioral misalignment is when your behavior and your actions are not aligned with your words. And we see this over and over and over again in organizations. And again, this is the number way that the leaders really hurt their effectiveness and really negatively impact their culture. So when you lay out a plan and when you make clear the purpose and the picture and the vision, make sure that you're bought into that 100%, that you're going to lead by example and that you're going to follow through. Because if you don't, then you're actually going to end up hurting your organization rather than helping it. So your big key to success with establishing consistency is discipline. At the end of the day, it just takes discipline, and having the discipline to be consistent is hard. It's difficult, but we need to have the fortitude to be consistent, to take consistent actions, share consistent messages, have consistent attitudes, and be consistent in our approach. So again, the question becomes, well, how do we establish consistency? Again, there's a lot of different things that you can do to help reinforce and establish consistency in your organization. I'm just going to share one simple best practice. And this is, again, what I do with a lot of leadership teams is we decide proactively, we decide now how we're going to handle certain situations that we anticipate will come up. So again, if we introduce this plan, these new safety protocols and these new safety policies, we can anticipate that some people aren't going to follow them, especially in the beginning. So again, we need to decide now as a leadership team, how are we going to approach that? How are we going to address that so that we do it in a consistent way? So again, any changes that you make or any things that come up that can lead to inconsistency in your organization, a good best practice is to sit down as a leadership team and decide before you ever find yourself in that situation, maybe if someone not wearing their mask or not social distancing, what's going to be our approach? How are we going to react to that? So that, again, you can take a consistent approach and establish this consistency, which is so critical to creating a culture of success. So again, step number 2 is to create a culture of safety and success, is to establish consistency, and the key to success is discipline. So real quick, John, I don't know, do you have any questions about anything that we've talked about so far or that I've covered?
Yes, Tim. As you know, in Panama, we are the hub of America. And then that's why a lot of multinational companies decided to establish here in Panama. When I met with other HR leaders in Panama and also in the region, Latin American region, we always start talking about, okay, most of the company establish policies, establish norms, also the employee handbook, and they request that everyone in the organization has to follow up. And they are very clear what could happen if you fail to follow the norms and the policies. But it's easy when someone in the lower level of the organization commit a fail. Because something you don't have to ask anyone. You in a simple way, as you said, a start warning, a second warning, and they decided, hey guys, we will fire this employee because he failed to follow the rules. But what happened when someone from the mid level, talking about managers and up levels, commit a fault? And then, then most of the leader team start seeing in another way and say, oh, no, but we have to give him a second chance. This is our best manager, and it's impossible that this manager could leave the company. So based on your experience, which could be your advice or how we could handle this kind of situation?
Good question, John. And this is a little bit of a tough one, right? But I think there's definitely certain things that we can take a look at here. So again, it's critical to establish consistency. So if our policy is something and we've made that very clear, then we should stick with that policy. Now, if it's someone who we really feel like we need in our company, someone we really want to maybe retain and make excuses for, if we're going to do that, again, we need to go back to step one and create clarity about why we're changing the policy, what the new policy will look like, and then begin to establish clarity around that and consistency around that new policy. Now, if we have a policy in our handbook, for example, that we're unwilling to follow or we're not planning on following, then we really need to get rid of that policy, right? We need to change it and adjust it and make sure that what's in our handbook is the policy that we're actually going to follow. Because it goes back to that behavioral misalignment that we just talked about. If you're saying one thing, you're putting in the handbook, this is our policy, but you're not following that policy isn't serving you well at all. If anything, it's hurting your company. So you want to make sure that you have policies that are serving you well. And so you need to look at your policies and make sure that you're willing to stick to those policies and make them consistent. And again, if you have a policy that's outdated, that needs to be adjusted, that needs to be changed, you just need to create clarity around, this is why, again, the purpose, this is why we're changing the policy, this is how it's going to help us all, this is how it's going to be best for our business, and this is how we're going to enforce it moving forward, and create clarity around why we're making those changes and what the new policy is, and then begin to establish consistency around that policy. So those are some of the thoughts that I have with that specific situation. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yes, it is.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Let's go on to step number 3. So step number 3 to creating a culture of safety and success is to add celebration. So created clarity and you've established some consistency. Once you've done those first 2 steps, now it's time to really start thinking about adding celebration into your organization. So celebration is a combination of 3 important elements. So it's a combination of recognition, a combination of measurement, and a combination of fun. And each of these are really important to adding celebration into your organization. So let's again take a look at each of these and talk about what this might look like in our new environment and as we try to embrace a culture of safety. So again, as you roll out new policies and procedures to keep everyone safe and to get your business up and running again, you need to recognize and reward those who are following the new policy. And it can be as simple as, hey, Juan, I noticed that you're wearing your mask today. Thank you so much. Thanks for following our new policies and procedures. And set up rewards and ways to make sure that you're recognizing people for following those new protocols. The next important aspect of celebration is measurement. So it's a really good idea to create some type of scoreboard where you're measuring how well your company is successfully following the new safety measures that you've put in place. So again, if we go back to the example that I introduced at the beginning, if our new safety measures are to wear a mask, to social distance at work, and to adhere to some health evaluations from time to time, what my scoreboard might look like, I may put a big calendar in the employee break room, or send out an email each day with a big calendar that has each of those 3 categories. And if our company does 100% and does really well, and everyone's wearing masks, everyone's social distanced, and everyone who needed to had their health evaluations, then we might put just a big green check mark saying we did it, we accomplishment, well done, we did good on that day. Now, if we have another day maybe where we failed, and maybe there was someone who wasn't wearing a mask, or someone who wasn't properly social distancing, or someone who didn't come for the health evaluation that they were supposed to come from, then we might put a red X or something indicating that, we didn't meet the new policy or our goals around our new safety measures for today. So creating this measurement tool that's visual, that either you're sending through a text message, an email, or if you can post it in a central location in your business, this will help reinforce again those new policies that you've put into place. And so again, this measurement is really, really important. It also signals to you as a leader, it reminds you that you should be recognizing your team, that you should be telling people, hey, good job. Look, all green check marks today. That's fantastic. Way to go, everyone. I appreciate everyone on the safety protocols that we put into place. Look at that. That's 5 days in a row. That's 8 days in a row. Congratulations, everyone. And it reminds us as leaders to recognize our team more often. So having that measurement piece really enhance and add to your culture. And then finally, try to make it fun, right? Bring an element of fun into the workplace. So with these new safety measures and protocols that you're going to put into place, create some competitions or some games. Like maybe if you have 2 separate work units, have them compete against each other about who's following the protocols the best, and then have a reward at the end of the week or the end of the month of what unit or what division or what work area was the best at following those new safety protocols, and have some fun with it. Have some fun at work. Work doesn't always need to be so serious, right? We can have some fun and let our hair down a little bit and have a good time. And when we do that, we build connections with our team members, and we build bonds with the organization where people feel good at work. And so figure out some ways that you can celebrate and add some fun. Another great idea would be to have some type of group celebrations. Like if we can go an entire month perfectly following our new safety policies, then we're going to have a party, and we're going to celebrate a social distance party and where everyone's wearing masks, and we're going to celebrate and have some fun. So think of ways that you can do that. Now, your big key to success with adding celebration is frequency. Again, where most leaders and organizations fail with celebration is they don't celebrate enough. They say, we have a big party at the end of the year, and it's a really big deal, and it's a lot of fun, and everyone gets together, and we give out prizes and bonuses. Well, if you're just doing it once a year, then you're really not celebrating enough. And you need to think about how you can celebrate on a consistent basis. If you want to create a high-performing company culture, if you want to have a successful culture, you need to celebrate often. In fact, one of the best practices of how you can add celebration into your culture that a lot of companies that I worked with have done is if they focused on daily celebrations. Again, when you see people doing the right thing each day, do a daily celebration, and that can just be giving someone a fist bump, giving them a thumbs up, giving them a smile, giving them a wave, telling them good job. It can be sending someone a compliment through text message like, hey, thank you so much for wearing your mask all day today. I noticed that that you did that and I really appreciate it. Or thank you for maintaining your social distance. I know it wasn't easy when, you know, something went on today, but I appreciate you adhering to the safety measures. Or writing that out in a thank you note, or sending an email of appreciation, whatever it might be. These simple acts of daily celebration can really transform your culture in your organization. In fact, I was working with a leadership team recently who was struggling a little bit with this, and I just had the leadership team just begin to track the number of daily celebrations that they did for their team members every day, and we made it a little bit of a competition. We had a little bit of fun with it, and the leader who did the most daily celebrations, we had a little prize for them, a little funny prize. Anyway, as they began to do these things, and as they did 2 a day, then 3 a day, then 4 a day, among all the leadership team, it had a dramatic impact on their culture, and it really improved their culture in a big way. And so you can just do simple things to celebrate. So again, step number 3 to create a culture of safety and success is to add celebration. And your key to success with celebration is frequency. So finally, step number 4. So step number 4 to creating a culture of safety and success is to have charity. When I talk about charity, I'm talking about helping your people feel like they're known at work, like they're cared about at work or loved at work, and helping them feel like they're treated with kindness and respect. Now, this is really important to helping you build a high-performing company culture. If people don't feel like anyone cares about them at work, they're not going to put forth their best effort. But when someone knows that someone is interested in them and knows them at work, things change for them and they really improve their performance. In fact, there's been studies that have looked at the importance of someone feeling love at work. And one was, again, highlighted in a Harvard Business Review. And they said that employees who feel love perform better and they show up to work more often. They also found that employees who felt love at work, that they were more satisfied with their jobs, more committed to their organizations, and more accountable for their performance. So this charity piece is really critical to improving your culture. Now, when I talk about charity with leaders, a lot of times, of course, the question becomes, well, what about accountability? You're telling us to be kind, to treat people with respect, but what about when they mess up? Don't we have to hold them accountable? And of course, the answer to that is yes, we need to hold people accountable, especially to these new safety measures. If we want to make sure that we're keeping people safe, we're keeping our doors open, we need to hold people accountable. So charity actually isn't about whether we take one action or not. It isn't about whether we hold someone accountable or not, but it's all about how. It's about how we hold that person accountable. So again, you can take any action with or without charity. So it's not about the action itself, but it's all about how you perform that action. So if we look at this example, let's say that someone breaks the safety protocols and they fail to wear a mask, and it's time to give them a final written warning because you've explained this to them and you've told them what's going to happen when they don't follow the policy and procedure. So you know that it's time to hold them accountable, to be consistent, and to give them a final written warning. So again, charity, you can do it with or without charity. You can present that final written warning with or without charity. Again, the picture on the left looks like a boss or a leader who's maybe yelling at his employee. He's belittling him. It looks like he's treating him really, really poorly. Of course, that's an example of someone presenting a final written warning without charity. Now, the one on the right, it looks like the leader is calm. He's sitting down. He's explaining what the employee did wrong. He's sharing how it negatively impacted the company and the coworkers and himself as an employee. And hopefully he's sharing what he can do to improve so that he can perform better at his job. So again, charity isn't about whether you give someone a final written warning or not, but it's all about how. How do you present that final written warning? Do you do it with kindness and respect, or do you do it in a way that's disrespectful and rude? And so to build a culture of success, you need to do it with charity. So your big key to success with charity is sincerity, right? You can't fake it. You can't pretend to care about someone or to treat someone respectfully. Because as human beings, we usually know if someone truly cares about us or not. So your key to success with charity is sincerity. So then the question becomes how? How do I improve charity in my organization? And again, there's a lot of things that you can do, but one simple best practice that's very effective is simply by getting to know your people. As you get to know your people better on a more personal level, as you figure out what interests they have, what they like to do outside of work, who's important to them in their life, what makes them tick, what makes them motivated, as you get to know your people better, those bonds of charity increase and those levels of charity increase in your organization. So a simple way to increase charity and to improve your culture is simply by getting to know your people better. So again, step number 4 to creating a culture of safety and success is to have charity, and your key to success with charity is sincerity. So really what we've been talking about today is a leadership model called the 4 C's model to creating a high-performing company culture. It's also known as the 4 C's model to leadership success. And again, if you look at the model here, at the base of the model is clarity. So that's your first step. That's the foundation of a strong and high-performing company culture. Without that clarity piece, it's going to be really hard to create a high-performing company culture. So it starts with clarity. Then you move on to consistency, and then you add celebration on top of that. Now, if you notice in the model that charity is not part of the pyramid, right? It's separate. It encircles the pyramid. And again, the reason why that is that you can do all of these steps in the pyramid with or without charity. And if you do it with charity in a way that shows kindness and respect, then that impact of creating clarity, establishing consistency, and adding celebration will be much greater than if you do it without charity. You can create clarity in a disrespectful way. You can actually celebrate in a way that isn't very kind. Like, let's go back to our example. Let's say that if we that we tell our team that if we follow our safety protocols for an entire month, then everyone's going to get, let's say, a small gift card, and we're going to have a big party to celebrate that success. Now, let's say that in 30 days, your team does it. Now, you can celebrate with charity or without charity. So an example of without charity, let's say look at your budgets and things are really tight, really worried. You don't want to give your employees the small gift card that you promised them. You don't feel like you have enough time to throw this party that you promised them, but you know that you promised it to them. So you hand out gift cards, but you're kind of upset about it and you're not too excited about it. And you kind of throw a party. It's not really a party. You just do it to say that you did it. But again, you're really not excited about it. Again, that's having a celebration without charity. Will it improve your culture? Perhaps, but it will improve your culture much more if you do that celebration with charity. So if you do it with charity, even though budgets are tight and you know it's going to be hard, you know that you promised this to your team. And so you're going to hand everyone that gift card with a smile. You're going to congratulate them. You're going to share your appreciation. You're going to be excited at the party. You're going to try to have a good time and help your team have a good time. And again, share your appreciation and your enthusiasm and excitement for them being able to accomplish this goal that you laid out for them. So again, charity encircles the other 3 C's because you can create clarity, establish consistency, or add celebration with or without charity. And if you do it with charity, then you can create a culture, a high-performing company culture of success. So again, clarity is the base of the model. It's the foundation and most critical for success. The reason why it's so important is because it brings unity, it brings cohesion in your organization, and it brings alignment. It also eliminates confusion, and it removes assumptions that people make all the time. Again, if you roll out new safety measures and you don't make it clear really clear the purpose of these new safety measures, people are going to begin to make their own assumptions. They're going to say, oh, they're just doing it because they have to. They're just doing it because they know that's the only way that they can make money. They're just doing it because they want to make our jobs harder. You know, they're going to start to make assumptions. But if you make it really clear the purpose of why we're implementing these new safety measures, then they don't need to make assumptions because they already know. And again, your key to success with clarity is repetition. Next, the next piece of the model is to reinforce clarity, right? Clarity provides a sense of security, it builds trust in the organization, and it produces this feeling of dependability. Like, I can count on my company, I can count on my leaders. Your key to success with consistency, again, is discipline. The last piece is to add celebration. Again, celebration introduces recognition, measurement, and fun. And it helps your people feel appreciated. It helps them feel like they're important in the organization. And it helps them feel connected as well to the organization. Again, your key to success with celebration is frequency. And then finally, the last piece of the model is charity. And again, charity is helping people feel known and cared about at work. Again, charity acts as a multiplier or an amplifier of your efforts around the other C's. So as you create clarity with charity, that impact on your culture will be much greater. Same thing with consistency and same thing with celebration. Again, your key to success with charity is sincerity. So a question I get a lot of times is, how do you know if what you're about to do, the change you're about to implement, or what you're about to do in your organization is going to help or hurt your culture? So I'm going to talk about that just for 1 minute. Is there a way that we can know? And the answer to that is yes. There is a way that you can know whether something that you're about to do, a change that you're about to implement, will either help or hurt your culture. And it's through what I call the 4 C's test. So the 4 C's test is 3 simple questions. It's answering 3 simple questions. The first question is, will this decision help reinforce and establish at least one of the 4 C's in the model? So will it help reinforce or establish clarity, consistency, celebration, or charity? If you can answer yes to that, then you can move on to the next question. The next question is, are we confident that this decision will not impede our ability to establish or reinforce any of the 4 C's? So are we sure that this decision that we're about to make, or this new policy or this change in our company, are we sure that it won't impede our ability to, again, create clarity, establish consistency, add celebration, or show charity? And if we can answer yes to that question, then we can move to the final question, which is this decision aligned with our core values, our mission, and our vision? And if you can answer yes to all 3 of those questions, then you know that what you're about to do is going to help your culture, going to improve your culture. Now, if you answer no to any of those questions, then you know that there's a high probability that it's going to actually hurt your culture. And so at that point in time, if you answer no to any of those questions, you need to go back and revamp that new policy or that change you're about to implement and tweak it and change it and do what you have to do to make sure that you can answer yes to all 3 of those questions, so that you know that this new policy or this new change is going to help your culture. So you can actually access some free tools and some strategies, and you can get some help in implementing the 4 C's model. If you go to the website beanawesomeboss.com, it has the 4 C's test on there. You can access this form that I just showed you on the 4 C's test. And there's different tools on that website that can help you, again, build a culture of safety and build a culture of success. We've also created an online course to help leaders, help them, again, navigate this process and help them create a high-performing company culture. You can learn about that course at the centerforcompanyculture.thinkific.com. Included with that course is a 66-page workbook that has valuable tools and strategies and case studies, again, to help you create this high-performing company culture. I've also written some books that can help you with this process as well. You can check out these books. They're available on Amazon. Be an Awesome Boss, The 4 C's Model to Leadership Success, and How Leaders Can Strengthen Their Organization's Cultures. Again, both those are available on Amazon to help you. And then if there's anything else that we can do to help your organization or to help your leadership team create this culture of safety and this culture of success, you can always reach out to me at the centerforcompanyculture.com. Again, we offer executive coaching services, consulting services, workshops, and speaking engagements. And at the end of the day, our mission, our purpose is to help leaders and organizations create strong cultures that help them have great success in their organizations. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions or to help you and your company through this process. So feel free to reach out to me at any time. Again, to create a culture of safety and success, all about this model. It's all about the 4 C's model. It begins with clarity, then move to consistency, then add celebration, and make sure you're doing all of that with charity. Now, to kind of close, and before we kind of open the floor to some questions, I just want to share one more quote with you. And this is from Deidre Campbell, who's the global chair of Edelman's financial services sector. And she's a good business leader. And she shared, and I agree with her completely, that in challenging economic times, we're reminded that companies should not only be a great place to work because it is the right thing to do, but also because it is good for business. As you create a strong company culture, a high-performing company culture, it will allow you to have great results, great long-term results within your own organizations and with your own teams. So that's all I got, John. I know that was a lot of information that I ran through there. I appreciate the time. It's been great being here with everyone, and I'm ready to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Well, thank you very much, team. It's an amazing presentation. Yes, I have some questions. Reinforcing models. Right? How could we help the organization right now that they are dealing with dispersed team? There is a lot of companies that have people on site and working in a remote scenario, and also the re-entry anxiety on the part of the workforce. I read this morning, for example, a survey from the DDI group, and they mentioned that, for example, in April, 2 of 10 employees was suffering from burnout, Mm-hmm. And right now, at the end of July, that survey reflects that right now 6 of 10 employees are suffering from burnout. That means that in our next challenge will be how we will help our workforce dealing with those behavioral health conditions, like depression, anxiety. I don't know if I am safe returning to work. I don't know if when I return to work, the company will maintain me in the position, or they will fire me. And also people that are working right now, work from home, they are saying that, hey, something, I am working more than on site because we don't have any specific schedule. We have a lot of meetings. The new disease is the Succ, everybody wants to have a meeting by Zoom, and there is a difficult situation. So how this model could help those companies to handle this situation?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, John. So the beauty of the 4 C's model is that it can be adjusted and adapted to different situations and different circumstances. So a lot of organizations that I work with, they've had to adjust the way that they create clarity in the way that they establish consistency and add celebration into their organizations. So one leader, for example, one CEO that I was working with, he used to have a weekly meeting with his team where he would kind of give a company update and talk about what was going on in the company. And he realized that he wasn't able to do that anymore, of course, because of the coronavirus. So he started to just send out a pre-recorded weekly message where he talked about any important, things going on in the company, any new protocols, any new changes, what he was working on and what the company was working on, again, to protect their employees and to keep business going. And so he started to produce a weekly message that he would send out to all of his employees, either through email or through text message. And so everyone was hearing the same message from their leader, from their CEO every week. And this helped create, again, clarity and consistency in his organization. So with remote workers, sometimes you have to be a little creative and figure out new ways to, again, implement each of these 4 C's. Now, in terms of dealing with burnout and some of the anxiety that we feel, or that our employees are certainly going to feel, I think as leaders, again, that the 4 C's model is the answer. If we help create clarity around the safety measures that we're taking and how we're trying to protect our employees, I think it's going to ease a lot of anxiety and ease a lot of uncertainty. If we don't create clarity, and if we're not consistent in following safety protocols, people are going to be nervous and they're going to make assumptions and they're going to be worried for their families. And so that's why that clarity piece is so critical. Adding celebration can help alleviate burnout, right? If we're having some fun every once in a while at work, people are working really hard right now. People are working longer hours and it's really tough out there. I found that those companies that can recognize their teams more often, they can bring more elements of fun into the workplace, that can help. And finally, perhaps the most important piece of it all is that charity piece, helping people know that you care about them, that you're interested in them, that you're interested in their well-being, that you want to be there for them, and making sure that it's clear if there are any benefits that help with depression or anxiety or things like that, making sure that that's very clear throughout the organization, and maybe who people can turn to or talk to in order to receive answers and help within the organization. So again, that the clarity, the consistency, the celebration, and the charity, each of these elements are so important to creating this high-performing company culture. Each of them can touch on a lot of these things that you talked about, alleviating the anxiety, the worry, as well as helping with the burnout. So those are some of my thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Julio, I don't know if you have any other questions.
Yes, I have a question, Tim. Some of our customers are obligated to design and implement ethics code. For me, this document is very important, but some people just copy and paste and forget the people that are going to read and apply. What is your consideration in this sense?
Yeah, good question, Julio. Thank you. Again, if we're putting things out there that we're not planning on following, then we're not doing ourselves any sort of service, right? We're not helping our companies at all, because it goes back to that behavioral misalignment. If we're saying one thing but then doing another, we actually end up hurting our culture rather than helping it. And so ethics are really important for long-term success. If we're not an ethical organization and we're taking shortcuts and we're not trying to do the right thing, then there's a good chance we're not going to be very successful for very long. We might have some short-term success. We might do okay in the short term, but in the long run, it's going to be, all of that is going to catch up with us. So as leadership teams and as companies produce ethics codes that's required by regulations or whatever it might be, it's worth the effort to sit down and look through that ethics code and make sure that you as a leadership team are willing to follow it. Because if you're not willing to follow it, that ethics code is actually going to hurt your culture rather than help it, because it's going to take away from your ability to establish clarity and to establish consistency in your organization. So again, I would be very careful with that ethics code and make sure it truly matches what you plan to adhere to as an organization.
Do you think that it's necessary to have a different code for executive officers, you know, the people that are the leader?
Absolutely not. No, Julio. That really hurts a culture, and we see that a lot. You know, a famous one. So I come from the world of healthcare, and for a long time in healthcare in the United States, all the physicians, and in some places they still do, but especially like the CEO of the company, he had the best parking spot right at the front door, and it really sent, you know, a message that, hey, I'm important. I live by different rules than you live by. You have to go to employee parking, which is, you know, half a mile away, and you have to walk into work. Well, I get to park right here, right next door to my office. So a lot of companies have gone away from that because we want to send a message as leaders that we're going to set the example. We're going to set the highest standard that we want everyone to live by. And again, if leaders live by a different ethics code, you're really just going to end up hurting your culture. Again, that's going to catch up to you at some point in time, and you're really going to hurt your business. So it's critical that that leaders and leadership teams are the best at adhering to that ethics code for everyone in the organization.
Yeah. Other thing that I always have in mind, and maybe because it's occurring, leader when obtain money and power change a lot. You know, money and power change the culture of the people. This is part of the history, no?
Yeah.
Therefore, could you give a message to younger people regarding this? In the end, my question is about corruption, you know, as a behavior and culture that some people have adopted. What do you think about that?
Yeah, good point, Julio. And we've seen it throughout history. It happens all the time. And unfortunately, it happens in business. Leaders become very successful, and they become different kinds of leaders. And so my message to new leaders, to young leaders, or to current leaders is that there's something that's critical. There's a critical leadership skill that really sets leaders apart from others. And in my mind, it really establishes successful leaders, and that quality is humility. You need to maintain a humble attitude as a leader. You need to be willing to listen, to learn, to be vulnerable and say, you know, I'm sorry, I messed up. And as we develop our ability to be humble and have that humility piece, we'll be able to maintain the right perspective as we, you know, rise up in the company and in the organization. And, you know, I've seen it a lot. I've seen leaders who start out at entry level, you know, management, and they're really good bosses there, but then they work their way up all the way to the CEO, and all of a sudden they don't seem to care about people. They're only interested in the numbers, and they're not interested in the right things. And so again, I think for young leaders and for any leaders out there, developing that humility piece, that willingness to say, I messed up, or I have things I can learn, or let me understand you, let me listen to you, and staying connected with our team is really important and can really help us kind of avoid that corruption we see for leaders. So that would be my advice.
Okay. King and John, the time is over. We were with two professional persons that is amazing, all the information that we received. A lot of information and keys were explained. Maybe in the future we are going to have another opportunity to share with you. But at the end, King, John, your final comment for the people.
No, you know, thank you, Tim, again, and thank you, Julio, for this opportunity. We need to be optimistic. There is a lot of tools that we could follow to, you know, and put in practice in our everyday situation. In Panama, the economic scenario is not good right now. We are, you know, every day in the news you are hearing people talking about that there are probably at the end of the year we will have like 500,000 unemployed and that is not, it's very hard to start listening those kind of numbers. No? But the point here is that the only way that we could continue our operation during this situation is follow the rules. The government and the International Health Organization established some specific rules, and we need to create that culture, and we need to live that culture every day. And for all the companies, it's very important to follow the rules. And as you said before, it's not only for me; it's also for my family, my community. And that will give us the opportunity, to return to the new normal, and also the expectation for a vaccine that we don't have the opportunity to talk anything about that. Is probably we will receive the vaccine by the end of the next year. So we need to continue following the safety rules. The leadership team, the leader team, will need to, to reinforce their commitment, and that will be the only way. So thanks again. It was a great presentation, team, and we will follow with you.
Sounds good. Thank you all very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Bye.
See you
Thank
later.
you.
Good morning, everybody. Bye.
Bye.